What's good, everybody? What's up, man? This is Stephen Qualls II, aka Mr. Qualified. It's your boy, and I'm here with my lovely co-host,
Ashley Wright the first.
You feel me? First, second in this piece, man. You know we come. You know how we coming, man. But no, man, no, we got a lot of jam-packed stuff going on in the NBA, man. Things are ramping up. We're almost at the All-Star break, kind of halfway through the
Our
season.
day.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're starting with anyway. We're starting with the All Star. Before we get into the starters here, let's just discuss. Okay, so there are more details now about what this All Star Day will look like.
So
Um,
it's so
so so at first we were just supposed to get the game, right? It's just supposed to be the game, which was already a stretch. Now, so pregame we're going to get the skills challenge, which in all honesty, let's be real. Can we find something to replace the skills challenge? I feel like we can find something more entertaining, to be completely honest, than the
yeah.
skills challenge. But hey, it's tradition, I guess. But the skills challenge and the 3-point contest are going to be pregame, so prior to the actual All-Star game. Which is weird because then does that mean like if somebody is in the All-Star game, but in the 3-point contest?
Yeah, I know Dame. Well, he wasn't named a starter, but he should be an all-star. He's been named to the 3-point contest. So he'll be.
Okay. See, this is it's odd. Anyway, so yes, those are parts of the game. So then the game will start and we'll play the first half. And then
Which is even dumber.
during halftime,
Even dumber.
it will be a slam dunk contest.
My thing is like I know the all-star game isn't a game where people exhaust all of their energy, right?
Right.
But still I'm playing a half of basketball. So if an all-star is in the dunk contest, my legs are tired in a sense. Like
Now, mind you, more times than not, this is not typically the case.
mhm.
Typically. So we may not run into that issue. However, first off, dunk contests usually run
Yeah.
a little long. So just how long is this halftime supposed to be? Do we only have two contestants in the dunk
Right.
contest? Like, what is this?
I
I really don't know this information yet, so I don't know. I don't know if it's been released yet.
I don't know. It probably won't be as many rounds because what is it like 4 or 5 rounds?
Usually I think it's four because you have your four participants,
Yeah.
and usually they all go one round. Then I think you take out one. I think it's either one by one or you take out the first two, and then
Mhm.
they go 2 rounds. I don't know. It's a minimum 3 rounds. I know
Mhm.
that, but you got the setup time for the dunk. You got the scores, and
And they get the redos, all that stuff.
yeah. So it's crazy. But I just this just you said it. This seems forced. Okay, this seems like we're trying to force a lot into this day. We're trying to force a lot into this very constricted time frame and this very restricted time in the country, in the world. So I guess I mean I'm probably gonna still watch, but it's just like
Right. Yeah.
it's gonna be mad weird watching a half of basketball, then like, oh, it's a whole dunk contest. Like, then just go back to watching regular basketball. Like, I'm just so confused.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Any additional thoughts on just the structure of this makeshift all-star day?
No, just it's stupid. That's all.
It is stupid, but I mean I guess the league is just trying to make it as normal as possible. To the starters. So, I don't think there's a lot of huge surprises here, except for the main one that we're going to talk about. But for the West, we'll start out West. You have Steph Curry, LeBron, Nikola Jokic, Kawhi Leonard, and you have Luka Doncic. Now, our biggest thing, and I think a lot of people's biggest thing, is why Luka got voted as a starter. Mind you, Luka should still most definitely be an all-star. But why he got voted as a starter over Dame Lillard. It just doesn't make sense. There's no really explanation for it. There's no consider this fact, consider that fact.
Mhm.
Dame should be an all-star starter. It doesn't make sense. We'll get into why later on in the episode. But He should easily be an all-star starter. But why do you think? I mean, obviously, I think it came down to the I think it was the fan vote, maybe. But whatever happened, Luka's in as a starter instead of Dame. What are your thoughts, your feelings about that?
Man, we talked about it before the show started or whatever. Dame has the Trailblazers in the fifth seed right now
He
in the
does.
West,
He does.
and without CJ McCollum. CJ's been out for quite some time.
Quite some time.
And we're going to mention that Dame is averaging 29.8 points per game. Might as well round up to 30 points per game. There is no argument as to why Luka is starting over Dame. There's none whatsoever.
There's really none.
It's like he's hitting buzzer beaters every other night to lift the Trailblazers over their opponents. I don't see why. I don't see why.
Yeah, they're fourth. Like they're tied with Phoenix, but they do have a. I'm guessing they won their head-to-head match or whatever. But or the difference of I don't know. However you break it down, tied, but they're fourth right now, and they're only okay. They're a few games behind the Clippers, but the point is, yeah, no, like everything you said is absolutely true. I mean, Dame, like you said, Dame's averaging 35-5 right now, and his team is 18-10. And I know at least for the last arguably 10 of those games, CJ has been out. And I don't even know if CJ's really been fully healthy from when he was injured in the bubble. So
I mean, I want to give credit where credit's due. Luka is also averaging 29 points per game, but they're not in the playoffs. They're, I think, 10th right now in the West.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So it's and I think sometimes that falls into how Luka is being what's the word I'm looking for? Like how Luka is being built or how he's being branded kind of in a league sense. And that's not to take away from Luka's talent whatsoever, but obviously Luka is being kind of billed as this next star.
Yeah.
Where Dame has always been an under the radar type of star, even though we're talking about the most clutch player in the last decade. So there's that. But yeah, but it's great. But like he definitely should be a reserve. I don't see how he wouldn't be a reserve. That would be ridiculous. But yeah, that's really the only thing as far as the starters out west that I feel like should be different. But other than that, it should be very, very interesting to see LeBron and Steph on the same All-Star team. That should be fun. I don't know if they're doing the whole drafting thing.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not sure. They haven't talked about that. But I mean, they have said Bron and KD will be the captains. So I don't know if that'll still happen or not, but whatever. But to the East, this is so weird. Well, actually, no, the only difference is KD. But Kevin Durant is technically an Eastern Conference All-Star.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. But KD, Kyrie, Beal, Giannis, and Embiid are your Eastern Conference All-Star starters. Do you change anything? Makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense to me also. Only thing is, we were talking about Kyrie in a previous episode about, the amount of games that he missed and being named an all-star. But since being back, he's definitely played and performed well, especially performed to the level that we're accustomed to seeing from Kyrie. So now it makes sense, yeah, but at the time it did.
Yeah. Honestly, if I wanted to be that guy, or if I wanted to be picky, my only thing would be I honestly may have given the starting position to Harden. If I'm gonna be 100% honest. Kyrie still probably would be a reserve, but talk about consistency. I mean, this man James Harden has probably been the most consistent net, since that big three has been formed. He's played the most games. Obviously, his stats have been consistent. I don't remember there being a game where he just didn't have a large impact in one of those statistical categories, even if he didn't have a great shooting night. Like we're talking about a man who has 5 triple doubles, who is leading the league in assists. Yeah. Like it's just this man is actually playing out of his mind right now. So I would make that argument, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think that it's wrong that Kyrie has to start. I'm pretty sure Harden will be a reserve. What are some other players from both conferences that you think should be reserves for the All Star game?
Definitely Devin Booker and definitely Zach LaVine. We also talked about
Yeah,
Zach LaVine prior to the show. Zach LaVine is balling, and his name has actually come up in the rumor mill. So I'm actually excited to see where he may land before the trade deadline. But Zach LaVine should definitely be reserved.
isn't the trade deadline like the weekend of All Star of the All Star?
Yeah, it had to be pushed back, obviously, because of the season or whatever. But it's about to be a crazy time.
Messy. It's about to get messy. But no, so that yeah, I agree. D Book for sure, Levine for sure. Um, I I think I think Ben Simmons should be a reserve. Um, I think you could Tatum. Tatum probably won't be only because he's missed so many games this season. But I if JB got thrown in there, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if I expect that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got it. I'm trying to think out west. So we already talked about Dame. Uh, I could see potentially Donovan Mitchell. I was gonna say him or Gobert, but it'll probably be Mitchell before it would be
Yeah,
Gobert.
yeah.
Um, who else out? Who? Ja, maybe.
I was actually about to ask you that. Do you see Ja at all?
Um, I mean, Memphis is in that like 8, 9, 10 area, so it's not like they just been dismal all season. So
Mhm.
I could definitely see it. I would assume the numbers are there. I mean, I don't know too many guards, especially out west, that have necessarily been out playing Ja, from being 100% honest. Um, yeah, you also got to think there's probably going to be another spot for a big, seeing that AD won't be playing in the All Star game. So, um,
Let me ask you another question. Is this the year Russ misses the All Star?
probably. Um, well, because the reserves are picked by the league, right? By like coaches and execs.
Yep.
I don't see how he makes it. If he made it, would I be surprised? No. But looking at everything, I'm just genuinely kind of like nothing sticks out to me that I could see an argument being made for him to make it.
Hmm.
But if you're talking about coaches and execs that may just, respect him as a player, and if you don't have a lot of options to choose from, like I don't. I'm trying to really think of people out west that stand out. Like you might see a Middleton make it. Drew more than likely would have made it if he wasn't. I don't know what his situation is. I don't know how long he'll be down dealing with COVID and health and safety protocols. But he potentially could have been in there as well. I'm trying to think. I, you could easily make an argument for somebody like Malcolm Brogdon to be a reserve as well, though. If we going off of pure stats, but then again, once it comes down to the coaches and everything, I think it really just depends. So I don't know, but I wouldn't. This could be the year. I think it should be the year personally, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does still make it. I mean, Russ has this has probably literally been the quietest season for him. I mean, obviously there's a lot of different factors that go into that, but I mean, Russ is just in a weird place in his career, and I don't know. Like Russ is also probably one of the most stubborn superstars. So you telling Russ to take a lesser role and go somewhere like to still have an opportunity to win is just not gonna happen. And it'll just be interesting to see what this Washington situation looks like because I, unless Washington plans to make some type of drastic move, obviously in the offseason, since it won't be this season, to really try to help Brad Beal. I why waste both why waste your prime there? I just really don't understand that. But I mean, we've already discussed him, so if he wants to be he'll be there. But yeah, no, that's all the all-star stuff we have. I don't know when we're supposed to get the reserves. Do you know?
I don't.
I don't know either, but we'll see what happens when we get the reserves, and we'll obviously talk about that whenever that happens. But we'll move on. We were actually just talking about a couple of their players a little bit ago. Ashley, you know, it's getting really hard for me to be. This is here's the thing. I'm an optimistic person, and
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a realistic person. So here are my genuine thoughts on Milwaukee right now. So obviously, like I talked about it in quality control, but Drew I think hasn't played since like the first game he missed might have been the 8th or the 9th of
Mm-hmm.
February, but hasn't played a game since. I'm pretty sure he's missed like 5 or 6 games up to this point.
Yep.
Pretty sure it was 6 because in that time the Bucks have went 1-5, and they just got that win last night on Friday. So, and it was against OKC, which if they would have lost that game, I would have been like, all right, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
But 5 game losing streak, longest losing streak for the franchise since 2017. So really since before they kind of made that turn and became one of the top teams in the East.
Yeah.
Um, there are a lot of people that one have already kind of been against Giannis or just been very critical of Giannis to begin with, and therefore very critical of the team. I even in the midst of seeing these losses, I'm not super concerned. Um, there are things that need to be fixed. I think the biggest thing is I think we need a new head coach. Honestly, just be completely honest. And I don't think Bud is a horrible coach, but I also think Bud may not necessarily be meant to be a head coach. I think he's
Talk about that.
I think he's one of those. I think Bud reminds me of like a Jason Kidd because Kidd is a great assistant coach, with Vogel, right? And I think that his expertise fits well in that position more so than it does a head coach. I think the same would go for a coach like Bud. Because when you've gotten the team to this point, Bud just has not shown that he puts the players in position to be successful. Like there was one point in the Toronto game where the Bucks didn't run a play for like 8 minutes, and then when they did run a play, Giannis got an easy bucket. And usually when they run plays and get easy buckets for Giannis, it makes things that much easier for the team. So if you can't even do that, uh, you're setting your team up for failure. So I think that's honestly the biggest hurdle the team has to deal with right now, and I don't see that changing this season. But I think that's something that needs to be fixed. And also I think Drew's presence is just missed on so many levels. Like I've been saying it all year, and I continue to say it. Drew is the key to this team's success in so many ways. Like not only just being present on the floor, but his intensity and what he brings. I think to the floor and what he does to challenge his teammates by how he plays. So I'm not worried, and my biggest reason for not being worried is for the last 2-3 years, Milwaukee has been a regular season team. They've essentially coasted through the regular season, like never losing back-to-back games. Or I mean, well, last year they did, but rarely going on like really long losing streaks and essentially just being extremely dominant until they got to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
My thought, my wild theory is that this is going to help them. I think for maybe not for the first time type of deal, but I think they're going to go through these struggles early. They're going to deal with these losing streaks. They're going to deal with people talking about them. They're going to deal with A, B, and C. And I think for them, it's like, okay, we experienced that. Like I think it's going to make them stronger. So I think when it comes to the playoffs, I still think they'll end up finishing in the top 4. They mess around depending on if they can get some more wins under their belts later in the season. They'll probably end up being 3 and 4 if they can't catch back up to Brooklyn and Philly. But because I don't see either of them going on any really really long losing streaks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think being in that top 4, I think they'll still be very competitive and they'll be a very tough out regardless in the playoffs. I think it's just a rough patch with the team right now. But I'm not overly concerned just yet. Like we're not heading toward a rebuild. Uh, but they will need to fix that bench at some point in time, regardless of what happens this season. They will need to do something to that bench and upgrade it drastically. Uh, but yeah, that's really it. But do you think outside of my bias slash unbiased opinion as a Milwaukee sports fan, what are your thoughts on where the team stands right now. When you hear people say, and I think Milwaukee has become such a big conversation because of Giannis, obviously, back-to-back two-time MVPs, and he's under a microscope, so that makes the team under a microscope. But how do you think they respond to some of the criticism they faced this season, which is probably some of the strongest they faced in the last couple of years?
I do think a coaching change is necessary, and I like the point that you made about Bud not necessarily being a fit as a head coach,
Mm.
because even though he had the Coach of the Year nomination, all that stuff, I think that came from hoisting Milwaukee from what they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that was around the time Milwaukee became a little bit more respected as a team in the East that could be a true contender. Now, I think that Bud puts me in the mindset of a coach like D'Antoni, not necessarily as offensive, like as much as an offensive mindset, but a coach that thrives in that assistant position, like you said, with Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
So the response would be to make a head coaching change. And as much as I like Bud, I don't know, maybe you keep him and just demote him and look for someone in that opening spot. I don't know. I like Bud.
Has
I
that
do.
ever happened?
No, it's never happened. But still, I like him. I like him, just not as the head coach.
Yeah, I don't want him to turn Milwaukee into another Atlanta. That's
Right.
clear. Because Atlanta was one of them teams that was always at the top of the East. And granted, they always had to face LeBron, but still they would have these great regular
60-win season, like,
and then struggle. So, and at some point you have to look at, well, it's like coaching in the regular season and coaching in the playoffs are, clearly different. And I think more so than anything, last year we saw Bud doesn't make adjustments. Bud doesn't, or the adjustments he does make are ill-timed or just odd and don't make any sense whatsoever. So
you talked about it in a previous episode where Giannis was on the bench for like the first 8 minutes of the fourth quarter or something like that. It was astronomical how long he was on the bench.
Like it doesn't make sense the way he plays Giannis sometimes, the way he plays any of his starters. It's almost like they'll be down. Like, it's not that he trusts his bench too much, but you have to let your starters go. They are starters and all-stars and stars for a reason. You have to let them go get you games. You can't sit back and trust, a coach's rotation or get certain people minutes. And at least if you're gonna be experimenting, rotate guys out. See what guys gonna give you. I feel like he kind of sticks with a rotation and doesn't really give people opportunities, and then they're not able to really show what they may be able to provide. So
sometimes it feels like, in the YMCA where coaches promise parents, oh, your kid's gonna get in. And sometimes his rotations feel like that. Like, we're not worried about that.
We are in the National Basketball Association. Yes. This is a professional league. Yes. There are people who get paid to warm the bench, and that's okay. They knew that. They knew what they signed up for. Yes. Okay, so yeah, that's just not acceptable. There's just really no excuse for that. That's not acceptable whatsoever. But yeah, I don't think there's a huge reason for concern. But I think back to what we said in the previous episode as well. This season will dictate a lot because, sucks to say, Bucks probably aren't going to make it to the finals. At best, they get to the conference finals, but I don't think they beat Brooklyn or Philly in 7 games to go to the finals, because that's who they would have to play. So I don't know, but if they go out before they're expected to, or if they underperform in any capacity, I think there's going to be more changes than people anticipate. Whether that be in players shifting, whether that be in players not signing. If you don't sign Drew back, you might as well rebuild at that point, because all you're going to be stuck with is Giannis and Middleton at that point, which is who you've had for the last 3 years. So I don't know, but they should figure it out. I hope they do. But moving on to another team in the East who's more than likely the favorite to come out the East, and for a lot of people, they're starting to become the favorite to win the championship. We talk about them every episode, and I feel like we will, because we just never seen anything like them before. But this, of course, is Brooklyn. And before I go into my little piece, what are your thoughts on Brooklyn right now? We obviously, we've seen them. We've seen a few games of all of them play together, but we've seen this team as currently constructed for at least a month now. About. Um, are you sold on them? When you hear people say they're a favorite out the East, they're a favorite to win the championship, do you think that's valid?
I do think it's valid, and I think it'll be especially valid in the playoffs. Like you're led by two people who know what it feels like to win. So I feel like those two people are like sharks when they smell blood in the water. You know what I mean? So come playoff time, they're gonna be ready. I think honestly, just the regular season is their test trial, but what we've seen in the regular season has been amazing. Like we talked about James Harden and leading the league in triple doubles, carrying that on to Brooklyn when he got traded to Brooklyn and still having those triple doubles, leading, I think he even leads that team in assists right now. And it's crazy because you're playing alongside Kyrie Irving, who obviously knows how to pass the ball just as well, if not better. So it's weird. And then you couple that with Kevin Durant that can shoot from anywhere, create his own shots from anywhere. It's crazy. It's very lethal. It's just lethal in Brooklyn. I'm definitely sold on them. And I love what Steve Nash has done with them as well.
Yeah, I don't think Nash. I don't think Nash gets the credit that he deserves for um, creating a system that works for that team. It's really the same thing Spoelstra had to do in Miami. You can have the talent, but you have to create a system that most benefits those players. And as much as Brooklyn obviously is an ISO team, I'm watching the game against LA, and it's weird because they don't ISO as much as people say, as much as people expect them to. They run a lot of pick and rolls. There's a lot of distribution of the ball. I mean, in that game, at least from the time I watched it, because there was a point where I did turn it off. But Joe Harris had 5 threes when I turned off the game.
Yeah, yeah.
So he getting the passes from somebody. So like the ball is moving around, and it's just crazy because I think what the commentators were saying, and I think what makes Brooklyn the most dangerous is Harden can be a point guard. Like Harden can be solely a point, and he can distribute the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he needs to, or when the other players go out, or when they're not available, he can ISO. And all three of them can do that. All three of them can be distributors and then ISO when you need them to, which is what makes them so deadly because they're not confined to only ISO. They can literally just revert to that whenever they want to or whenever they need to. And there's not a lot of teams that can do that. And there's just not a lot of teams that have an answer for it. I think that's the biggest thing. Like there's maybe only a team or two, like firepower aside, even there's really only a team or two that really probably has a counter for what they're going to give to you on a nightly basis. So I think that's what makes them the most dangerous.
It is. And I kind of want to make a point from that Lakers game. I sent this to you before the show, but Kyrie Irving was basically just calling out LeBron after that game. So, like, LeBron missed a free throw late or whatever. And Kyrie is like, that's your best free throw shooter. Like, this is going to be, like you said, this is the finals that we deserve. And if this happens, it is going to be so good because, like, Kevin Durant didn't play against the Lakers on Thursday night, and neither did Anthony Davis play. So at full strength, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. So like Anthony Davis and Schroeder were both out. That's two starters, and that's your second and third best player, honestly, for the Lakers. KD doesn't play, and something I didn't even realize it till I was going on my little Twitter rant on Thursday. But Brooklyn's not even fully healthy. Like I was sitting here wondering. I was like, why hasn't Shumpert played yet? I had to look it up. Didn't even realize this man got a hamstring injury. Like the week. Well, I guess he suited up for 2 games, but didn't play, and then got a hamstring injury in like practice or something, or when he was training.
Oh.
So, and I don't think it's like a super serious hamstring injury, but they're definitely taking it lightly. But Shumpert hasn't played yet. They don't really have a timetable for him. They just signed Roberson, but we don't know when Roberson's going to play. But if they keep both, if they keep both of them, like I need people to understand. We've literally been saying since this trade, Brooklyn needs defense.
Yep.
If you give Brooklyn two relatively elite, and I know elite is a strong word, so I'm saying relatively elite perimeter defenders who do not need the ball but can be third, fourth options like offensively. What? Like you just extended their rotation to people. You already have players like TLC stepping up. You already have a Joe Harris. You have DJ coming in the form. Like who who really go match them if Brooklyn go 8-9 deep? Who really, who's playing against them? And I think that's the scariest part. And so my first tweet was Brooklyn at full health to me is scarier than Golden State.
This Golden State or Golden State?
Golden State, like Dynasty Golden State.
Man.
And it's
in ways, yes, because no disrespect to Klay Thompson, but I feel like James Harden would be the easiest thing to compare to him. Klay Thompson wasn't averaging as many triple doubles as James Harden is putting up. So in ways, yes, I do agree. This team could be a lot scarier than that Golden State team, especially like with DeAndre Jordan. I would take DeAndre over JaVale McGee. I think you're right in a lot of aspects.
Yeah, and obviously Brooklyn is nowhere near the defensive team that Golden State team was. But what makes Brooklyn so scary, and is what made Golden State so scary, like, yes, they were already a defensive-minded team, so that didn't surprise anybody. It was that they made the game look so easy because of the players they had. KD's game was so easy because you have Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Like KD literally was getting whatever he wanted because he didn't have to worry about double teams. He didn't have to worry about any of that. So when you look at Brooklyn, you already have three players that you already have three of the top scorers in the league, three of the top ISO players in the league. And then you surround them with one of the best shooters in the league. You surround them with two great perimeter defenders. You surround them with a center like DeAndre Jordan, who people forget, was an elite defender and a relatively elite player when he was with the Clippers. So you surround them with this and you realize that all three of them can buy in defensively when they want to. Don't get me wrong. That's not me saying like KD's probably the most elite out of the three. But I wouldn't consider KD like an elite defender, but he can still defend and play defense very well. Harden, when he's committed to it, people forget that Harden like 230. Like you're not really moving James Harden around. We've seen clips of that. And Kyrie ain't locking nobody down necessarily, but I feel like he could hold his own, against certain guards, and not necessarily be punked or just completely, destroyed, by somebody offensively. And then you put that with the rest of the team, and it's like, who has an answer for them? Who really who has the answer? What is the answer for a team like Brooklyn, considering all those components?
Ain't no answer.
There's not an answer, and that's the like people were saying like LA, like, and what's going to make it so interesting when you look at Brooklyn and LA, like you said, like that, because of the star power, because of the fact that you have Bron, obviously Bron is Bron. So you have Kyrie. Kyrie hasn't won a championship since he left Cleveland, and everywhere he's been since then, he's tried to be a leader or thought of himself as a leader, and it hasn't went well. And so obviously the jury is still out on like whether he can win a championship without LeBron. And this would be the prime example of like, yo, Bron, you got your squad, I got mine, like we going at it. Then Bron and KD has always been a rivalry. They've pretty much always been seen as 1 and 2, in the league or really in the world as the best players. So there's always that rivalry. And as it stands, KD has LeBron's number. So, that's going to be something in itself. Then you have somebody like Harden, who now is in the best position of his career to, really showcase that he can show up in these moments. And he's looking to get his first ring. So he's probably the most hungriest, of all these stars on the floor. And all this star power with the benches and the teams that both these teams have. And it's it rivals Golden State and Cleveland. It rivals Miami and San Antonio. It rivals any of these finals that we've thought were like very equally matched. This honestly rivals Boston and LA to me. And to be completely honest, outside of honestly the history and the historic aspect of Boston and the Lakers, but think of star power, you think of what's at stake, you think of the bragging rights, as far as the league is concerned. Nothing tops a Brooklyn LA final, to be completely honest. So in a lot of ways, for the culture and for Twitter, I hope we get a Brooklyn LA final.
Yeah, Twitter will be on fire.
Twitter will be
Twitter
ablaze. My Lord. Twitter will be in shambles if that's the finals we get.
Crashing.
No, it'll be ridiculous. But yeah, so moving on from Brooklyn and championship talk. So Friday night, Embiid in a win goes off for 50. We already talked about him. Embiid is in the MVP conversation, been having an amazing year. Philly's having an amazing year. Probably one of their best years, even in the span of having him and Simmons. He drops 50. And then Jamal Murray. There's Jamal Murray signing Friday night as well. And he dropped 50 and probably has made noise for the first time since the bubble. So one, I mean, obviously, like you aren't going to get too many 50-point performances, but I think this brings up a more interesting point, at least that I thought about. And Embiid isn't so much the subject of this as Murray is. I think there's a group of players in the league that like are inconsistent on a nightly basis. Like you don't hear their name or see, these glaring stats on a nightly basis, but they have the ability to go for 50 essentially whenever. Like, the talent is there, but any given night they could go off for 50. And it's weird because like, how do you feel about that? Like, because I'm looking at it like this is not a Fred VanVleet situation. And no disrespect to Fred. I love Fred, you know what I'm saying? But Fred, with that one game where Fred had like 50 or 50, it was like 50, it was some astronomical number that nobody really expected. Something. But like he's probably never gonna do that again this season. Just that was like an anomaly. But like we've seen Jamal Murray consistently score on that level, then come into this season be mediocre compared to that, and then have this game. Like, does that like would you be upset at that? Like, or do you think that's like irritating that you have players that clearly have that skill and have the ability to, but aren't able to produce on that level, and not like 50-point level, but produce on that productive level night in and night out?
Yeah, it is frustrating. And one player that comes to mind when I think about that is Andrew Wiggins. I
Mm.
thought Andrew Wiggins was going to come out guns blazing. And even Tracy McGrady has talked about the type of talent that Andrew Wiggins could be. And that, like, he just never stepped into his full potential as far as being consistently that guy. And I feel like, Jamal Murray has proven a lot more than Andrew Wiggins has. But like you said, like in the bubble, Jamal Murray, we grew accustomed to him being able to ball out. And so, like it's a Jamal Murray sighting. We shouldn't be having that conversation. It should be night in and night out, daily conversations about Jamal Murray and how he's able to help the Nuggets win, this game, that game. Instead, it's all about Jokic. And while Jokic is the leader of that team, Jamal Murray's name deserves to be talked about just as much, but he isn't producing in the way that he is able to produce.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of Wiggins, wouldn't necessarily fall into this class. But when you think of Jamal Murray and you think of the class of guards he came in with, you think of
Mhm.
Donovan Mitchell, you think of De'Aaron Fox, you think of even Shea to a degree, even
Mhm.
like these are all guards that have solidified themselves with their teams and are putting up their numbers consistently, and they're very very solid numbers. Whereas Murray seems to be the most inconsistent kind of out of that group and class of guards, and it's odd because it's not that talent wise. Murray is a tier below them, really.
Right.
So I think that kind of confuses me, and I think it's even more irritating because Murray, like Jokic, just only can take Denver so far by himself. And I don't know if Murray's going to be one of those players that's just known for showing up in the playoffs, maybe. But I don't think you want to take that chance. I don't think Denver's in a position to take that chance. You know what I'm saying? They're not that elite to be able to just turn it on like that. So I don't know. I mean, because of what we saw in the bubble, and because a lot of people really felt like that was Murray's ascension, really not so much into superstardom, but it was his ascension into this role as really being that second guy, like right after Jokic on this team. If they have any aspirations of continuing to be a contender and continuing to be respected, he's gonna have to he's gonna have to be more consistent. Now, obviously, that's not dropped in 50. That's not dropping 50 every night, but you should be in the same range that Donovan Mitchell,
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox, like all them men, like that low to mid 20 points per game. You should be there consistently. With assists. Like that should be a thing. Like that should be a conversation. So I hope that changes for Denver's sake, because as it stands, I don't even know where Denver is in the playoff. Denver is okay, so they currently sit seventh, but the Warriors are on their tail and the Grizzlies are on their tail. Both are within at least a game, or at most a game. So
Who's six in the West? Who's six?
Spurs.
Spurs. Oh,
They're,
okay.
the Spurs are a game ahead of the Nuggets, and then they're a game and a half behind Phoenix.
Okay.
So it's getting really tight. But I think if anybody's going to make a run, especially at that 8th spot, I think 7 through 10, that's Denver, Golden State, Memphis, and Dallas. I think if it stays as it stands, that's going to be the battle. That's going to be the battle for 8, or those last couple of spots. I think the top. Well, you never know with the West. It's always close in the West. So yeah. But going off of Murray, kind of going back to Embiid, as I said, he's in the MVP conversation. Who else would you say is in the MVP conversation so far this year? We talked about Embiid, we talked about Bron, we've mentioned Jokic, but are there any other players in your mind?
Dame Dollar. Dame Dollar. Every other night, and this isn't even like every other night. He's hitting game-winning shots. Like I just
Who was that? He closed out with 4 threes. Was it Dallas? No, that wasn't Dallas. That was
Chicago. I know he hit one against
he had
Chicago.
it was a game winner against Chicago. He closed out somebody with 4 threes. I think it was the game after Dallas. Though. I can't remember who they played, but they're just coming off a road trip as well, where they performed very well. So man, it's people got to put some respect on Dame Dollar name, I just don't know what else he has to do.
I don't either. Like he's winning the series for this team. He's winning games. He's averaging 30 points.
What more you need? Put some respect on this man's name. Put this man's name in all the conversations, because at this point he's doing everything you're asking your MVP to do. He's doing everything you're asking your star player to do, and he is the epitome of leading this team, especially without your second best player, especially without who's supposed to be your starting center. He's doing all this, and he's doing it with a new and young team.
Yeah.
Outside of Melo, this team is basically full of second year players, a rookie or two, new additions to the team. I mean, you got a player like Covington, who is a vet, but first year with the team. You got Derrick Jones Jr. that came from Miami, still a relatively young player. Gary Trent Jr. is only in like his second or third year. So it's like these are young players that Dame is leading to the 4th seed in the West. And the crazy thing was they were struggling last year unhealthy. Yeah. And, they're still relative. I mean, mind you, they're still unhealthy. You're minus CJ and you're minus Nurkic, and yet they're 4th.
And this is a team that's been consistently in the playoffs. Like their seeding has fluctuated, but they've still made these appearances. And this is still a team that got to the Western Conference Finals. Like you said, I don't know what more he has to do. I'm not sure.
I don't know. And then, people want to talk about him being loyal. And I'm like, he's loyal, but look at what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a Bradley Beal situation. This is not, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but this is not him staying and the team has either one, done nothing to help him, or two, he like the team is just not good and he's just staying out of loyalty for reasons we don't understand. Like Portland's done what they can to really always have supporting players around Dame. And Dame has always delivered. Every single time Dame delivers. So you just gotta put some respect on this man's name. I just feel like there's no reason Dame Lillard there's no reason he should still be underrated, under the radar, like not being mentioned with those type of guys. There's absolutely no reason. There's no reason at all. And he's shown that time and time again. So yeah, I think another player that is in the conversation and is in a similar line with Dame is Steph. And Golden State is 8. That ain't nothing but Steph. I just want that to be known. Kelly Oubre had 1 50-point game, maybe hit 1 3 this season. Andrew
in the same game that he scored 50 points in.
Andrew Wiggins is inconsistent, as we talked about. Draymond probably averaging 9 points. I gotta double check that. I don't know. He may be averaging more, but Draymond ain't giving you a lot of points. You feel me? Wiseman been off and on injured and everything. Steph is just team right now, and the fact that they're even 8, and fighting for it, but still in the position to move forward and potentially be a higher seed. That's all Steph. And Steph is averaging about 30 points. So we already talked about it with Steph. You got to stop the cap, stop the disrespect. Steph is still Steph. But I think he's in the same line with Dame. Is like, Steph had, he was injured and then the dynasty ended and all of a sudden people just kind of stopped talking about him. And Dame just has been flying under the radar and you stop talking about him. But they're point guards leading these teams virtually by themselves, at least in the context of this season. So you just got to put some respect there, man. I feel like all of them should be, in the conversation. I think obviously once you get deeper into the season, as it gets closer to the end, once you start looking at who's the top seed and, stuff like that, it'll start dwindling down, but they should be in the conversation as it stands until they are not the reason that their teams are as successful as they are, but yeah, any more names you throwing into the fire?
No, we talked about them. I think Steph, Joel, LeBron, and Dame.
I think that's a solid 5. I think that's a solid 5. Like if you throw Jokic in there, I think that's a solid 5. That'll work being in the conversation that you can make arguments for sure. But yeah, man, hey, that's it. That's it for us today. We went through a lot going on in the league. We don't know why our All-Star game is happening. I'm not concerned about the Bucks, but somebody should be. Brooklyn is the favorite to win the championship, according to a lot of people, and pretty much according to us as it stands right now. Murray should be more consistent. Embiid's in the MVP conversation along with Dame Dollar and many others. And yeah, Giannis got to do better if he don't want to be, cast out of this big man conversation. But yes, that's all we have, man. Is there anything else you want to tell the fans, tell the people, tell the sports lovers out there?
No, be sure to follow us at TWQ Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Also comment under our YouTube page, on Instagram, on Twitter, whatever you want to hear us talk about, we will do that.
Indeed, man, and that's all we got. So until next week, until we come at y'all with another round of sports news and information, catch y'all next time. Peace.